I represent, in a way, almost 900,000 signatures of people that said, these are important to us. People that went out and collected them in the rain, people that were spit upon, people that were attacked for doing this. But I think that you're going to hear today testimony from a lot of people who are personally impacted by this in ways that have quite moved me, actually. In fact, Jody's going to give you something that I think is one of the most powerful things that really hits me in my soul as a parent. I tried to be bipartisan today. I'm wearing my Seahawks jacket. I figured that would not be considered a partisan issue. It's hopefully bipartisan that everybody can agree on. I don't want to take a lot of time. I just want to say thank you for hearing this. I believe enormously that parents are the primary stakeholder in raising their kids. I believe, secondly, that no government employee can ever know or love your child as much as you can. We were very careful to allow for protection of children who are in homes where there is danger to that child. This law should in no way force something on those children, and schools are allowed to have that exemption. But I think the assumption should be for every single school that the parents are good. And when there's evidence to the contrary, certainly take that action and protect the child. And that's the primary thing I want to say, is that parents have a right to know. They have a right to be involved. Despite what some of the other senators I've heard say to the contrary, parents have every right and should be the first primary source of guiding and protecting their children. Thank you today.
I am a lifelong Democrat, a lesbian, and the co-director of the national organization, the LGBT Courage Coalition. I want to speak today about this initiative regarding what is known as pediatric gender transitions from its historical medical foundations. The earliest models of pediatric gender transitions never emerged from secrecy. They emerged only from intensive parental involvement. If you look at the early Dutch researchers that later laid the foundations for all pediatric medical transitions, these children were never placed on a medical pathway because a school intervened or because parents were excluded. They were placed on that pathway only because their parents were deeply engaged, closely monitoring, and fully informed at every stage. And parents were always included in the decision-making if they sought to not proceed with a medical pathway. Even the clinicians in the Netherlands who created this protocol for pediatric transitions, such as Annelou de Vries, emphasized that there had to be family stability and sustained parental participation. These models have never been designed to function without a parent. They always assumed parental consent, oversight, and parental responsibility. That history matters because we are now being asked to believe two contradictory things at the same time from state leadership. On one hand, we are being told that medical transitions for minors is beneficial and even life-saving. But on the other hand, we're being told that schools must remove parents from the conversation for a child's safety. Those two claims cannot be true at the same time. The science is now telling us that medical transitions for minors are not beneficial or life-saving. But if the Democrats still want to believe so, then they must reconcile their own internal contradiction. If the Democrats want to still believe that the medical transition of a child is a legitimate therapeutic pathway, then they have to recognize that when this pathway was created, no school was ever told that a child should be getting any of these services by cutting a parent out of the discussion. You cannot claim that a treatment is serious, complex, or beneficial while also claiming that parents must be kept in the dark. If Democrats want to still believe that medical transition is legitimate, they also cannot divorce what the early scientists know. A social transition, such as a name or pronoun, is the first step into a medical pathway. A social transition is not a neutral act. It is a medical intervention. It cannot and should not ever begin without parental involvement. Even the doctors who created this would tell the Democrats this very thing. This Parental Bill of Rights initiative restores a basic safeguard. It ensures parents can access school records and be notified when medical services are provided. I am someone who worked from within a pediatric gender center. I can say plainly and simply, removing a parent does not reduce any harm. It only increases it. And it creates exactly the kind of unsupervised pathway that every early researcher into gender care warned explicitly against. If we are serious about evidence-based policy, we must be honest about the history. And if the Democrats are going to continue to push for pediatric, medical, and social transitions, where it was studied at all, they have to be able to answer why it was only studied with parents and not without them. This initiative aligns policy with that reality and the reality that the Democrats claim that they still believe in. Thank you.
Classroom teacher, an elected union official, and a father. I am proud to serve in all three of these roles, but I need to be honest. I do not feel my union or the Washington Education Association represents all or even most teachers in these issues. Many of us want clarity, honesty, and partnership with families. Many of us feel silenced when those priorities are dismissed. I'm here to speak for the teachers who believe in transparency, the families who deserve it, and for the children who are directly impacted. I am here to state a simple truth. Trust is built through transparency, not through silence, not through ambiguity, not through policies that distance families from their children's education. Parents are not outsiders to public school. They are essential partners. Trust is built through transparency. And when transparency is removed, trust collapses. We are seeing that collapse right now. Washington public schools have lost thousands of students. Families are leaving. Each student represents roughly $20,000 in public funding. When 9,000 students leave, nearly $180 million leaves with them. That's not speculation. That is the funding formula. Families are not leaving because teachers have failed. They are leaving because trust is broken, and trust is built through transparency. This erosion places teachers in an impossible position. Our profession is grounded in honesty and integrity. When educators are expected to withhold material information from parents, or even lie, that integrity is compromised, and trust is built on transparency. Without it, we are asked to violate the very ethics of our students. We are told that transparency causes harm, that honesty creates danger, that parents cannot be trusted. I reject that narrative. Protecting students and respecting parents are not opposing values. Educators already have legal obligations to protect students from harm. Those protections remain. Trust is built through transparency, not secrecy. Secrecy does not create safety. Secrecy creates suspicion. It creates disengagement. It drives families away. And when families leave, public education fails. Trust is built through transparency. When parents are informed, they stay engaged. When they stay engaged, they stay enrolled. When enrollment stabilizes, schools remain strong. Initiative IL26-001 does not undermine public education. It restores clarity and trust. It restores partnership, and trust is built through transparency. Without trust, public education cannot and will not survive. Thank you.
School districts across Washington state are currently creating and databasing detailed mental health records about students, yet parents are not informed these records exist. The Seattle Times reported that the school-administered health assessment called Check Yourself collects, quote, some of the most sensitive information in kids' lives, and taking it creates a student health record. At a recent state conference, it is described as part of a new, quote, statewide initiative. Parents may be unaware that their 6th, 7th, or 8th grader is asked to enter highly personal information, including paragraphs typed into empty text boxes about home life, who they have a crush on, who they sexually are attracted to, if a family member has been to jail, if they've cut or burned themselves, contemplated suicide, or vomited to lose weight, if they are questioning their gender, identify as non-binary or transgender, attend religious services, are unhappy with their body, all of which is saved into that student's record. This is not an anonymous survey. This is not the Washington Health Use Survey. This program was presented at medical conferences as a child-friendly, trauma-informed assessment. Here's how it works. An 11-year-old sixth grader completes the assessment during math class, one of 67,000 Washington students who've already done so. Her scores are calculated, she's triaged, then her record plus her scores are transmitted to a centralized database. Approximately half the students are flagged and attend private intervention sessions with a school employee, where session details are added to the student's record for tracking them. Washington parents are not notified this record exists. However, schools retain full access and can view and add to it at any time. Among 12-year-olds who express discomfort, public Check Yourself datasets contain pages full of repeated comments, including these. These are real ones kids typed in. I hated this and never want to do this again. It's a mood ruiner. Why do I have to answer these questions? Why do you need to know who I like? It makes me feel useless, like I'm in a mental hospital. Public records show multiple districts reported concerns, including a Bellevue Schools director who wrote, I was unable to find any studies on the validity and reliability of Check Yourself as a screener for middle school students. During a meeting with OSPI, parents were told the mental health interventionists, quote, do not need mental health training. We have lay people doing interventions constantly. The training guide instructs interventionists to reflect after private sessions they have with students. Where do I feel myself wanting to add my own thoughts or opinions about what might be best for them? Was there a moment I felt like an expert in their life? Parents should have the same visibility into their child's health records as schools. This initiative restores parents' rights, ensuring access to these records and notice to parents that such records exist about their child and are available for them to review. Thank you.
There is no dispute that public school enrollment is declining. Low birth rates are often cited as a reason, but the reality is that a significant portion of that decline is because families are leaving. They are protesting with their feet. Key provisions in the parental rights law were gutted last year, as noted in the opening. This further eroded trust between schools and parents. What was once a partnership has shifted toward policies that treat parents as adversaries in their own children's lives. Schools exist to educate children, not to replace the parent-child relationship. Yet current policies often promote secrecy from parents under the guise of protecting student privacy and student rights. No matter how well-intentioned, this is harming the very children that schools claim to be protecting. Every major study on child well-being shows that children are safest and healthiest when parents are informed, involved, and guiding their children's upbringing, including their education. Federal law is also clear on this, making Washington State an outlier. FERPA was designed to protect student records from the public, not from parents. Schools do not have the authority to substitute their judgment for that of parents. No ideological or policy exception exists. In other words, there is no carve-out for things like gender identity or any other school district preferences. Schools also cannot avoid transparency with parents by redefining what a record is, changing what constitutes medical care, or invoking student privacy to deny parents access. It is also ethically wrong to place educators in the position of deciding what information a parent is and is not entitled to, which may require them to mislead families and oftentimes lie. This initiative does not change mandatory reporting requirements or welfare protections for children. It simply ensures that parents receive transparency by default rather than presuming they are the risk. This is not, as we've been told, a culture war issue, nor is it political. All parents, regardless of political leanings, want transparency from schools about their own children. They also want the right to receive full curriculum, opt-out measures, education records, and the authority to decide what is in the best interest of their own unique child. I urge your support. Thank you for your time.
I wanted to take everyone back to a roadmap that I grew up in, which is a period a parental rights were kicked out the school system. And when I hear people say there has been abuse in certain families when the children are in danger, and that's why this initiative was fighting about, I want everyone to know, with my living experience, if everybody is without parental right, the abuse the A in the abuse will become a capital A. Every child will be facing the danger of being abused one way or the other. Let me explain the history and let the history tell itself. So I grew up in the China Cultural Revolution. In the system that I went to school in, there was no parental involvement, period. And the only time that your parents were invited to school is when the child is being non-compliant. And that happened to me personally when a teacher asked me to do something not honest. I hesitated. So the teacher threatened me with my grades, with my opportunity for, to become a member in the Communist Party and to disengage my friends. So basically isolate me for the instant that I would not take submission for. And ultimately, my parents had to go to the school and face the principal and go over the situation. But ultimately, with the system in hand, we were basically bullied into submission. So with that experience, I wanted to say that this parental right initiative is not only important, it's so essential for everyone in this country to have the freedom, to have the freedom and the parents' trust and transparency between the school to establish that relationship for the growth of the child. So now I always tell my dad how grateful I am to be in this country and grow up as a parent in the United States. And as a parent in the United States, I'm grateful for the freedom, but I'm also very alarmed seeing some of the signs that we are experiencing here in this community and actually throughout the country. What I'm seeing is that our parents are struggling to stay informed. And the transparency is very much reduced from between the school and the families. And our involvement as parents are becoming interference, are believed to become an interference rather than a support for the children. So as we can see, that history tells us something really important. And in this case, I'm seeing the danger approaching. And the danger really is not something that's sudden, and it always comes in a pace that's gradual and that's accumulative. So for instance, it starts with something less of a communication between the parents and the school. And they also start to experience filter of information. So we know less and less about what's going on with our children. And over time, it really starts to normalize the idea that parents don't need to know anything about our children and what's happening in school. And this is where the danger comes from. And this is when I'm mentioning the capital A in abuse. And this is when everything starts and start to overshadow.
30 seconds left. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not very good at the timing, but I'm going to get to the point. Okay, so as a parent, I want my child to feel supported at school and grounded at home. I really urge everyone to listen to not just me, but everybody here who support this idea. I want transparency and communication and mutual respect. And most of all, I want to ensure the system I grow in will never repeat here. And I urge you to vote pro on this initiative. This is an important direction that we don't want to go back and compromise our children. Thank you.
At the Washington Policy Center, and I support restoring the Washington Parents' Bill of Rights. Over 30 states currently have a Parents' Bill of Rights. The first state to have one was Arizona back in 2010. And close to 2/3 of states also have parental rights through what's called strict scrutiny in the courts, meaning there must be evidence of actual harm before the state is allowed to intervene and infringe upon the fundamental rights of parents. Yet under the guise of promoting quote unquote safe and supportive education systems, last year parents' rights were gutted. Conspicuously absent from supporters' claims about why parents' rights should be gutted is any scientifically rigorous research that, one, links adoption of parental bills of rights with documented increases in harm to children, or two, demonstrates better health and academic outcomes for children in the growing minority of states that do not have a Parents' Bill of Rights. In stark contrast, one of the most consistently documented research findings in the educational and developmental literature is that informed and engaged parents contribute to better child health and educational outcomes. In conclusion, there is no credible scientific basis for treating Washington parents as though they're public enemy number one. But there is an expansive body of evidence that keeping parents in the dark makes children less safe, less secure, and less successful in school. Thank you.
These initiatives will protect girls' sports and restore parental rights. They address real and pressing concerns affecting students, families, and educators across our state. As an educator, I'm responsible for not only academic instruction, but also for fostering fairness, trust, and student well-being. As a parent, I expect public institutions to respect my role in my child's life, to uphold policies that are grounded in equity and common sense. These two initiatives do exactly that. In my role, I have had kids ask me to call them by different names or use different pronouns when referring to them. I am legally barred from sharing that information with parents. I'm a parent, and I know that if my child were going through something similar, I would want to know. I would want to support my child and offer the help only parents know how to give. I would not want their teacher, who sees them 55 minutes a day, have to make the decision to keep that information from me. Initiative 26001, Restoring Parental Rights, is critical. Parents are not obstacles to education. We are partners in it. Policies that exclude or override parents weaken trust, they create conflict, and ultimately harm students. Restoring parental rights affirms that families have a central and respected role in decisions that affect their children's education, health, and development. These initiatives reflect the values of fairness, transparency, and accountability. They support students, they respect families, and they provide educators with clear guidance rather than confusion. I urge you to stand with parents and teachers by supporting these initiatives. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to us. This is very serious stuff, and I wish District 22 was here, but they're not. So thank you, and I appreciate your time.
With over 30 years of experience as a music educator, I believe deeply in the importance of public education and the necessity of strong partnerships between schools and families. I also want to be very clear about why I'm speaking out on these issues. The policies outlined in the Parental Bill of Rights and in this most recent initiative do not directly affect me. I have a great work environment. I love my students. I thoroughly enjoy the families that I get to work with, and I'm blessed to have very supportive colleagues and administrators. After 30 years, it would be very easy for me to just go to work, go home, and never engage in this conversation at all. But I'm here precisely because it's easy for me not to be here. It's easier for all of us just to stay quiet, to not rock the boat, to just go along to get along and hope that common sense wins out, an approach that has not served our students well over the last decade. One of the main purposes of legislation is to establish the clear foundation on which our society rests. Our founding fathers recognized this in the Declaration of Independence by affirming truths they considered to be self-evident. It is often these obvious truths that are the most important to protect, no matter what social media seems to be screaming at us. When we as adults and leaders fail to stand our ground and clearly affirm the rights of parents to be primary in their children's lives, the foundation beneath our schools begins to shake. In educational psychology, all educators have learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is a foundational principle in education and childhood development that essentially states a child cannot learn effectively if their basic needs for safety, trust, and stability are not met. When adults intentionally weaken communication between school and home, we shake that stability. When children feel that the adults in their lives are not aligned or that trust is fragmented, it directly hinders their ability to focus and engage. Our schools do so many things well, but we also must be honest about our limits. As a middle school band teacher, I'm an expert in my field. I can tell you with great specificity all the problems you have with playing your trumpet. But schools are not in any way equipped by time, staffing, or scope to replace parents as experts on a child's mental health or personal well-being. We cannot cut parents out of the equation for the most complex parts of a child's life. Hiding information from parents does not protect students. Instead, it destabilizes the very relationships they need to rely on. Our responsibility as leaders is to fortify the foundation beneath our kids so they have a stable base from which to grow, explore, and learn. Parental rights in a supportive learning environment should never be reduced to a matter of political ideology. If we actually want to protect our children, we must commit to protecting the truth. Thanks for your time.
I am here in full and wholehearted, passionate support of the initiative 26001. I'm father of 2 kids, single father. They're in school age. I'm a Washington citizen who cares about all of our rights. Chief among them, I think, which we need to consider among all of them, but one of the most important ones I want to read here. Article 1, the Declaration of Rights. Section 1, political power. All political power is inherent in the people, and the governments derived their just powers from the consent of the governed and are established to protect and maintain individual rights. The people in this room, myself, the 400,000 people that have signed the initiative have not consented to having their parental rights stripped away from them. They are affirming them in the due process allowed to them in our Constitution. We, the governed, do not consent to having these rights taken from us. That is my testimony. Thank you very much.
Parental rights are not a privilege granted by government. They are a natural reality rooted in the fundamental role of parents playing in raising and nurturing and protecting their own children. Right? Those rights include guiding their education, safeguarding their health, and shaping their value. But today we face troubling truth that many parents have not just lost their rights in some arenas, we've actually relinquished them. We've grown lazy, complacent. We must take responsibility for that. You know, I'm following a bunch of great speakers who have already given you all the details that you need, right? We all know what's right and what's wrong. And I think about how difficult of a position that you're in because you're like David facing Goliath. Then I thought about William Wilberforce. I don't know if you ever read his book, but I highly recommend what that man was able to overcome. And it didn't happen overnight, but he made a decision whether he's going to become a politician or a pastor. And he said, well, I can make more of a difference becoming a politician. So he decided to end slavery. And he thought it would happen overnight because slavery's wrong. Us being parents, not having our rights over our children is wrong. This should be an easy thing, right? It took him 40 years to the detriment of his health. And he was just this little tiny dude, but with a great big voice and a great passion because he knew what was wrong. You see, the enemy knows what he's doing. He gets our kids. Because if you get the kids, you get the future. And we fell asleep. We all fell asleep. We've medicated ourselves, sedated ourselves, we scroll on our phones, and we eat too much. And we've lost the truth. We've lost our will. But here's what I say to you now. Read that book. Read the autobiography of William Wilberforce and understand what he was up against and what he did. It took him 40 years to do it. I'm guessing this is going to happen much quicker for us because I see the winds of change are happening. And are you really willing to get on that wave, right? And paddle like crazy because that tsunami is happening. Do not let it pass you. We're going to be behind you. I'll get everyone I know to be behind you. If you're willing to be brave and courageous and bold for something that is unbelievably important, is standing up for our children. And it's time for men to be men again. And we apologize. And I said in the other end, as women, that we have castrated you and we have put you in a position to where you can't be the men that God has created you to be, the leaders, the one that will stand up and protect our children and our women. We're sorry for that, but it's time for that to end. I liken it to this. There's a bowl full of pudding, right? And you put a teaspoon of poo in it, and they're like, it's all right. It's just a teaspoon of poo. But we're up to a cup of poo in our pudding, and we're still calling it good.
It's honestly the worst time for me to cut in.
That's right. I'm saying right now it's time for us to push the pudding away and say it's not good. What have I been thinking? And I praise God that each and every one of you understand, as David did with that little sling and a stone. And I mentioned to another beautiful woman here again, if you're willing to do it, if you're willing to stand up and put it all on the line for something that I think is more important than anything else, it's the future. It's our kids. Fight for them.
As a teacher, I sat in staff meetings where we were told how to hide student information. We were trained how to hide student information. We were threatened with RCWs if we dare spoke up to our parents, who we are to be trusted with their kids. I remember kind of speaking against it or just sharing my concerns, and then I was threatened. I was attacked. I was given a letter in my file, and I had to leave the district. My daughter was in a classroom, in a fifth grade teacher Miss Knight's classroom, where she groomed, or whatever you want to call it, a student. And watching my daughter go through confusion about what's going on with her friend, what are these lessons going on in her classrooms, and not being able to say a word. We were able to opt out, and 5 days later, that was taken back. And being in that building and knowing what kind of content and lessons were being taught, and told we couldn't opt our kid out of that classroom, and how dare myself as a teacher speak up, and as a parent as well. And again, I was attacked, threatened, and had to sit in meetings and be disciplined. And with that letter in my file, how dare they? My parents reached out to me. They wanted to opt out. Several parents. I'll be quick, Travis, sorry. And I had to tell them no. Student, long story, some of you know, Travis shared the story before, but this student had to leave the country. This family had to return to India out of fear. Do you think we've lost trust when we have families leave our country? It's ridiculous. It needs to end. Thank you for your time.
I'll start by saying I urge the support of IL001 because it is a tool that is necessary to give parents access to the surveys, to the mental health evaluations, to even the classroom projects of creating ice stinks sign, which I just saw recently, and protest marches. The number one survey that is well known is the Healthy Youth Survey, but there's also other surveys, the SBIRT, the Panorama, and I just learned about Check Yourself. Those are all tools used to transform a child's mind and change their values, beliefs, and their attitudes. The Healthy Youth Survey, when it came out in 2002, asked questions to sixth graders. Did you have more than a sip of beer or wine recently? And then they asked the question, have you ever seriously thought about killing yourself? And question number 49, have you tried to kill yourself? We wonder why children are committing suicide when every Healthy Youth Survey asks suicide questions starting at 11-year-olds. Parents don't know about that. The Healthy Youth Survey is told, parents are told that it's happening if you read the 8-point font print in the newsletter, the busy newsletter. But most people don't realize this is the survey their kids are getting. The surveys also with mental health treatments, I see that they create conclusions, decisions about your child and treatment about your child. And so the parents never know that the government schools are transforming the children to their government values. And I, as a Japanese American with my husband, I want to preserve my Japanese values, and they do not match the government values. So please support this so I and my children, and I have access to my grandchildren and children's records. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Testimonies you're going to hear after mine, again, are going to be much more impactful than mine. I'm simply providing a vehicle for them to speak. But I want to say a couple of things on this one. As we started this journey, we started this process, what I was told repeatedly, or the criticism that we received, was, first of all, it's not happening. It's not happening. And then, well, it's happening, but it doesn't impact that many people. The WIAA came out with a number. They said, well, it's 10. In Washington State, it's 10. The OSPI said it's 5 to 10. That told me that something about that suggested that they didn't know what the number is. If you say it's 5 to 10, that's 100% difference in your number, which means you're just making the number up. So with the WIA, we reached out to them and asked them, do you track this? And if you do, can you tell me a breakdown by sport and how many are doing it? And they said, we don't really, it's hearsay. We've heard about 10 cases. So there's no tracking on this data. But what I did hear from is the girls that it does impact. Now there's a second tack that they took to us. If they can't win on those things, the next thing they said is, well, you're a bigot. And that's the end all of all conversations. And you'll hear from these girls, they were all called bigots for standing up for their own spaces. Second thing is, you're banning trans athletes from playing in sports, which this absolutely does not. It says only that girls can play in girls' sports and boys can play in boys' sports. There is no ban of any sort of athlete as long as they play in their sport. The final thing that's been thrown out is, oh my gosh, this is going to cause genital exams. And they love throwing that word out there because it sort of makes everybody feel icky. And then it makes whoever's proposing this seem even worse. This law does something very simple. It says there's already under state law a requirement for every single student, male or female, to get a health checkup, to get a physical from their pediatrician or their doctor. That has been required for well over 50 years. Boys have been going through this with a turn your head and cough that is very hands-on. And I don't know what's going to happen to trans girls. Do they have to get that or not? I think they're safe, and we're sort of lightly saying this, but there's a safety issue here. If we ignore science, this is about the safety of the student. There is nothing in this law that would require or would allow or encourage in any way a coach, a track meet official, a referee, or anyone of that sort to have anything to do with this. This is only between the student athlete and their pediatrician. And if the pediatrician has been their pediatrician for years, they don't even really need to check because they already know. They can check the box and we're done. The final thing that I want to say is this initiative is not about hate, it's not about exclusion, it's about the safety, the mental health, and the fairness that girls deserve in competing in their sports. Thank you.
I'm here today because fairness and safety in girls' sports matters to me, and because I have personally experienced what happens when fairness and safety is taken away. In the 8th grade, I qualified for Kashmir Junior Olympics in track and field. Only the top 2 athletes from each event qualified for this meet. And that season, I had dislocated my kneecap playing basketball and spent months in painful rehab to recover just to earn that spot. When I arrived at the Junior Olympics, I had no idea I'd be racing against a biological boy. I didn't even realize it until after the race when he stood on the podium in first place, and every girl, including me, was pushed down one spot. When my friends spoke up, including me too, an adult from his team said that if we were going to complain, we would need to go somewhere else to do so. In that moment, it felt like everything we had worked for, every early morning, every injury, every sacrifice, no longer mattered. When my family and I respectfully spoke up, we never expected the backlash that would follow. I have been called hateful, transphobic, a bigot. Adults have called me stupid. Adults have told my parents that they should be ashamed of me. I have also been told that I'm just a sore loser and I should train harder and not suck so much. My family has been threatened with lawsuits, we've lost friendships, and my safety has been threatened, all while being told that I am the hateful one. I have even been told that I would be responsible if this transgender athlete decided to take their life. This is an unbearable weight to place on anyone of any age. People tell me that this isn't a big deal. They say there aren't many transgender athletes. They say it's just high school sports. But since the 8th grade, I have competed against 4 biological males. 4 times, I have watched girls lose podium spots, rankings, and confidence. And this is not just about high school sports. For me, my teammates, friends, and so many girls across Washington State, this is about our dreams. We train for hours, we push through pain, exhaustion, injuries. We sacrifice because we are told that that hard work and discipline matter, that if we give our best, we can achieve our goals. That belief is what is being taken from us. I continue to speak out because I know how it feels to have something you earn taken away, and I am not alone. Girls across Washington State have messaged me, girls who are scared to speak up publicly and are discouraged and afraid. They've told me that they've lost awards, rankings, and podium spots and opportunities. They've told me that if they protest, even peacefully, they are threatened with suspension by their schools or coaches. As female athletes, we feel like our voices don't matter. Our fairness and safety are being dismissed by the very adults who are supposed to protect us. This is not about hate, and this is not about discrimination. This is about protecting girls, physically, emotionally, and competitively. There are real differences between boys and girls, and acknowledging that reality is not hate. In closing, I ask those who have the power to decide our future to protect us. You have the power to protect fairness, you have the power to protect girls' safety, and you have the power to show us that we matter too. Your decision sends a message to every female athlete in Washington that our dreams matter, our voices matter, and our opportunities matter. Thank you.
I appear before you to discuss what I've experienced as a result of what I feel is the blatant disregard for female athletes and their safety. When I was 15 years old, I was playing for my girls' basketball team on my last game of my season. During that season, an 18-year-old man was allowed to not only compete against my girls' basketball team, but also be present in my locker room. This made me deeply concerned and uncomfortable for my safety, so I reported these concerns to the school administrators, trusting that they would protect me and my teammates. Nothing was done to help me or ensure that I felt safe. Instead, I was met with quite the opposite. After I referred to the 18-year-old as a man, I was investigated by the WIAA and Tumwater School District for harassment and bullying for misgendering this individual. Instead of being protected as a minor and as a student athlete, I became the one under scrutiny. To this day, my peers yell at me in the hallways, call me names using profanity and derogatory language, and try to intimidate me for the stance that I have taken. I have had my own school guidance counselor come out against me, teachers, and been told that people telling that I'm going to hell, told that they hope I choke and die on an explicit part of this man's body, told that I am a horrible person and that I'm a bigot, transphobe, the worst that you can imagine. It is clear that my school does not see these actions as bullying or harassment from these other people, but when I call out the truth, I am the one that gets investigated. They have shown no intention of providing support or assistance when this takes place against me. I have worked extremely hard to be a student athlete. I have dedicated myself to my sport with countless hours and even fought my way back from a severe ankle injury the season before. Basketball is something I earned the right to participate in safely. There should never be a man in girls' locker rooms or playing against a girls' team. I should be protected as a female and as an athlete. I deserve the right to feel safe in my sport and in my locker room and bathroom designated for biological girls. There are differences between men and women, and that is God's creation, and it is wonderful, but it also means that men have an advantage over women in these sports. I am asking for protection, not just for myself, but for other girls like me who are in the same situation. Female athletes deserve safety, privacy, and fairness. Letting biological males participate in girls' sports or use our private spaces in any capacity directly threatens our safety and therefore our rights. I also want to add that sports physicals are very normal in any part of a child's experience in playing in activities. They are between a child, their parent, and a licensed doctor. There are lies being spread about these physicals, trying to hide the fact that it is about health, safety, and readiness to play, nothing more. Spreading lies about it doesn't protect kids. It scares parents and distracts from the real issue, which is that boys should not be participating in girls' sports. Please listen to my plea for my safety as well as other women's and girls' safety in our sports and our locker rooms, and please listen to the cries among all of us female athletes. Thank you.
In the beginning, way back in time, 1983, I started coaching, and it was really fun to watch girls gain the confidence that sports brings. It was so cool. When we listened to Patty Murray today on a video, and I was so excited to hear how supportive she is, because she talked about how it was really cool, Title IX, she didn't have that opportunity, and then her kids did, and how the difference was so amazing to watch the girls get choices of sports. I ran into Title IX, I'm a runner, and I just rolled in. Title IX came about a year or two before, maybe even like I was in junior high, and I had no idea that the people a year before me didn't have those opportunities. The generation, Patty went bad, better. I went good, worse. Where should a thing like a Title IX go? I had it better than she does. I graduated in 1979. That should not be. We shouldn't be having this conversation. I started this when I first saw this when one of my parents of my kids in my cross country sent me a picture of a boy in a race. Because I had been saying, it's not in Spokane, it's not happening. And there are more. There were 4 last year in Spokane, by the way. There's more than 10. And so they took a picture, showed it to me, and I started talking at a coaches meeting, and long conversation between me and a younger female coach who thought I was just too old to understand things. And finally got her to admit there's so few transgenders that the girl he beats, she is expendable, her exact words. And that is not okay. And she said it in front of 50 people, and it was terrible. Every kid is at risk. Transgenders are at risk. They need some help. It's not being told they're girls when they're boys. There's different help for them. I worry about the girls' mental health. I have watched the confidence in 1983 change. I have 2 girls in the last few years who ran against a boy and were beaten by this, no matter what they did. One of them was out-kicked kind of in the last second. It just shut her down. She had problems in college. She ended up not running. She'd been all along, was going to go to the Olympics and all these things, and she was done. She didn't want to deal with that again. She had some problems in college, and she's now pulling herself together a little bit, but not competing. The other one did start competing, and it was just too much, all the combination of stuff for the last 5 or 6 years, and she is also done. I worry about the mental health, and we really need the common sense back, please.
I'm a lesbian, a lifelong Democrat, and a classical liberal. I am also the co-executive director of the LGB Courage Coalition, a national organization made up of gays and lesbians who support this initiative because we believe protecting girls' spaces and caring about all kids are not opposing values. I want to start by addressing something very directly. When we defend girls' sports as sex-based, some people hear that as a rejection, especially of boys who are gender nonconforming or experiencing distress around their identity. But that's not what this initiative does, and it's not what we believe. The initiative is not about judging these boys. It's not about denying their struggles. It's about protecting girls' sports, because girls deserve spaces where their bodies, their safety, and their opportunities are respected. The conflict arises because we have been told that if a boy claims to be a girl, then girls' boundaries must give way. And when girls' spaces are defended, that reality feels threatening to people who believe sex is negotiable and changeable. It is not. But girls' sports were never created to solve questions about boys' identities or medical treatment. They exist because girls need protection in athletics, full stop. As a woman who does not conform to most of the stereotypes of what a woman, quote unquote, should be, I want to be very clear about something else. Nonconformity does not require medicalization, and it does not require erasing sex. We can protect all kids, including the gender nonconforming kids. We can welcome feminine boys into boys' sports, and we can welcome masculine little girls into girls' sports. That is what real inclusion looks like. What is not inclusive is telling families, often in moments of fear and confusion, that their sons must suppress his natural development in order to belong or participate. Many parents of these boys are deeply distressed. They want their children to play sports, to have friends, to feel normal, and they were told that medical intervention was the only solution. But we now know that that pathway is failing children drastically. It harms boys whose bodies are medically altered in ways that do not resolve distress and instead expose them to lasting physical harm. And it harms girls who are asked to give up their protected spaces in order to accommodate an approach that medicine itself is stepping away from. This initiative offers a humane alternative. Girls' sports remain protected, and boys are not told that they must medically alter their bodies to make policy work. Children should not be asked to sacrifice their bodies to resolve adult uncertainty. Caring about girls does not mean abandoning these boys. Protecting boundaries does not mean rejecting people, and acknowledging sex does not mean denying dignity. This initiative reflects those truths. That is why I support it, and all of the gays and lesbians in my national organization support this initiative. Thank you.
Come to you as a Grammy Award-nominated artist and songwriter from New York, living in Los Angeles. I flew here today because it is very important to me that I support this initiative. How you say? I'm 42 years old. I come from a very rough neighborhood. And I was in a restroom in a Gold's Gym, and I turned around to a man in the locker room. 3 different men on 4 different occasions in a 2-week span, which let me know it was out of control. Now, me as a very tough woman from the Bronx, I promise you I cried more than I ever cried in my adult life. After this, I cried for my mom. I cried when I hear these little girls telling their stories. And I am a tough woman, and the effect that turning around to a man in the locker room had on me, or him disrespecting me, having no regard for my naked body, the way that I felt, the disrespect, the violation, and how it affected my life is just something that I have never felt, and I can't even explain to you. And that's why I am here, because I understand this effect to be great on my own life. And I'm looking at you and I'm like, what if you were in a locker room? What if any one of you women were in a locker room? These little girls are not built to deal with this type of thing. It's not normal. It is not okay. And while I don't have the history in this happened to me 3 months ago and changed my whole life. And since then, I can't even focus on music. I'm here, and I'm at every event that I can be at supporting girls since this happened to me. This is a huge problem. It is mentally a problem for the women and the children, and it is just something that we must stop. It is up to all of us in this room to push hard, to not be brave, to just be sensible. Because I don't think this is brave. I think this is reality. This is honesty. And we need to get back to that. And every one of you women in here, I expect you guys to at least make the right decision. You men, I just hope that you understand. Women are 50% of the population. And you have to be here for us, because if we're not happy, you're not going to be happy either. Okay? So I thank you so much.
This is not about hate. This is about boundaries. Also, first of all, there's no such thing as trans. And I hear people qualifying biological girls this, biological girls that. There is no other kind of girl. There's not a different kind of girl. There's just girls. Girls are girls. This is about fairness on the field, but this is also about privacy in the locker room. This is going to seem like a digression, but I promise you it's not. It used to be that it wasn't rape if it was your husband. And women did not get marital rape laws onto the books until 1993. 1993. That's how long it took women to fight to say that there is no special category of man that deserves to bypass your consent. But here we are, teaching girls in 2025 that there is a special category of boys that gets to bypass their consent. And we are teaching boys that they are entitled to violate those boundaries. And we are teaching the girls that they are not allowed to say no. We used to teach girls to respond to their instincts. The classic 16th century tale, the classic safeguarding tale of Little Red Riding Hood is a safeguarding tale. And in that story, Little Red Riding Hood's problem is not that she didn't see. It's not that her instincts weren't working. She saw. She saw the big eyes. She saw the big ears. She saw the big teeth. The problem was that she was talked out of responding to her instincts. Our girls are seeing. They also see. They see the danger. But they are being talked out of responding to their instincts. Safeguarding expert Gavin DeBecker says in The Gift of Fear that the best thing women and girls can do to keep themselves safe is to respond to their instincts. The root word of instinct is to wear, to guard, to protect. Girls have those instincts to protect themselves, to keep themselves safe. But we are telling girls right now to ignore their instincts, to swallow them, and this is a safeguarding failure. Trans ideology is filled with empathy traps. We should feel empathy for these girls who are being violated in their showers and locker rooms and whose awards are being stolen. But instead, we are being told to feel sorry for boys with identity issues. As someone with a background in psychology, I am here to tell you that access to naked girls is not a mental health treatment for boys with identity issues. Neither is access to their sports. There is a saying that I like to say, and it is, good men stay out, so bad men stand out. That's the rules that we've had. We have not needed any rules to govern our bathrooms, except for good men stay out, so bad men stand out. And there is a certain category of men and boys who are standing out. Women and girls sports has also become a double standard dumping ground for anyone with a trans identity. All right. For anyone with a trans identity, these girls there are already girls who are trans who are playing in women's sports. I was at the NCAAs with Riley Gaines, with Will Thomas, but not a lot of other people know that Isaac Hennig was also there, a woman who is a trans man. There was 2 trans in that NCAAs, not just Will Thomas, although he only is the one who got all the publicity. There will still be trans in women's sports. It's not an identity-based ban. It is a sex-based ban on the basis of sex. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, on the basis of sex. So, our girls are seeing. Let's support them in protecting themselves. This is about safeguarding. Thank you so much.
I understand that the other side believes that if a boy claims he is a girl, then in their mind he is a girl. But that belief does not come from medicine. And I know that because when I worked inside of a gender center, we clearly knew that we had 2 different sex categories. Medical providers never believed that these children were literally girls. They understand them to be boys who are experiencing a specific type of distress. That distinction matters because we know that the evidence that we initially started to do this from no longer really supports this approach. And I'm a little bit shocked right now. We just got news today that The first society in American medicine, the Plastic Surgery Society, has actually just came out and said that they no longer in support of this. About 7 minutes ago, the American Medical Association actually went on the record and said that they back up what the American plastic surgeons just said about surgery first to start with. But this today has been a huge shifts. What I want to talk about, though, is that these boys are actually being harmed. I care a lot about these kids. These boys' bodies are being medically altered in ways that do not resolve this distress. What actually happens to these boys is that they are put on a puberty blocker at Tanner stage 2. That means, physically, that their penis will never grow, their testicles will never develop the pathways to create spermagenesis, and it means that we are sterilizing these children. Of the first 70 children that this was tested on, one of these boys was subjected to this protocol, and he died because he never developed enough penile tissue to use in the vaginoplastic surgery. The surgeons attempted to create a vagina for him by using part of his colon, and he died of a massive infection. There is nothing to be celebrated about maiming boys. Every article, every sports that looks at this as if there's some sort of positive here is we are perpetuating violence on these little boys' bodies. And because of that, we're also harming girls, whose sports and sex-based rights are undermined when this policy pretends that medication can erase biological reality. We are here as a national organization to support these initiatives, in part because we very much care about these young boys who grow into young men, who then grow into men who will be physically harmed continuously by these interventions. We believe that we can protect all children, including gender nonconforming children, without ever medicalizing them or without erasing their sex. And like Lauren said before, we can accept gender nonconforming boys into boys' sports, just like we have for a long time accepted gender nonconforming girls in girls' sports. Thank you so much for having this tonight, and I just hope that you do follow the news because you are going to start seeing more and more of this. There's some major changes going on right now today.
1,187 Washingtonians who signed the Protecting Fairness in Girls Sports initiative. That huge number, well over the threshold, shows it isn't fringe. It's what families care about. So not only am I a mom, but I'm a former athlete. In high school, I played various sports like volleyball and basketball and softball, but volleyball was my favorite, so I stuck with it. I poured my heart into every game. Back then, we didn't worry about boys in girls' locker rooms or competing against biological boys. Privacy was protected. Biology and respect guided things. Locker rooms were safe for girls, and parents like my dad would never let that change. Whoops. Girls deserve that same privacy and respect today. Stop. Sorry about that. I lost my train of thought. Okay, when changing, using facilities or competing, no girls should feel uncomfortable or unsafe. We shouldn't have to fight. Okay, thank you. Okay, let me restart. Girls deserve that same privacy and respect today when changing, using facilities or competing. No girls should feel uncomfortable or unsafe. We shouldn't have to fight for basics, yet here we are. If some Democrats are watching, I say shame on you for refusing hearings and ignoring your constituents. We will not be silenced. The more you try and silence us, the more the fire is ignited. More parents are rising up because girls are girls and boys are boys, and protecting them means fairness, safety, privacy, and real opportunities for our daughters. The initiative upholds Title IX for biological females. It is common sense. You will not gaslight us into thinking something else. Thank you.